Blizzard has been making a bunch of adjustments to dungeons in the game, and I've been getting this question over and over again. Where do I farm now that my favorite dungeon got nerfed? So we're going to go over that today. We're going to go over Hell Tides. We're going to go over normal dungeon farm routes. We're going to go over nightmare dungeons, how to do them efficiently, and then also go over some tricks that you utilize to clear these dungeons more quickly, or maybe something that you didn't know before. Okay, so one of the best things to farm early on, and well, not just early on, but all the time, just because you need Forgotten Souls, is Hell Tides. I have a guide up already on YouTube that you can reference, but essentially what you want to do is it's 1 hour on, 1 hour off. There's some super chests that you want to find. You just run to the events, you double dip, you collect cinders, you collect obols, use those cinders to go and open up the secret chests that respawn on the hour, and then use your obols to go gamble on World Tier 4 for whatever specific slot that you need. I go into it in more depth on my full guide, so just reference that full Hell Tide guide if you want to know how to do it. But you have to do Hell Tides. It's just an easy, quick way to get gear. There's a lot of other alternative things to farm, but one of the major things that people like to farm in Diablo 4 is normal mode dungeon, just for experience, gold, and loot. And there is still some good dungeons to run, even after they nerfed the Runes of Eridu. And I'm just going to go to these different dungeons. I want to show you some of my favorite ones real quick, and you could farm these if you just don't want to do nightmare dungeons. The dungeons that you want to farm now are Iron's Hold, Uldir's Cave, Haunted Refuge, Blind Burrows, and Mercy's Reach. The first normal dungeon that I really like is Blind Burrows. It's right here on the map if you want to find it. Blind Burrows dungeon. This dungeon has been good for a while, and it's also my favorite nightmare dungeon. But it's a quick linear layout. There's poison type mobs, so it's a little dangerous, but it's still really good for experience, gold, and loot. The basically how you farm it is you just go in and you just go around the outside edge. Right here's the entrance once you kill the 3 villagers. So we're gonna kill the 3 infested villagers, and that's where the boss will be at that door. You just gotta watch out. Don't be scanning the mobs when they die, because you don't want to die to the poison. That's just a little event. I'm actually gonna skip that event. And so you just kill these villagers. Kill the first one. Stay along the edge. Don't really go into the center until near the end. And I left that piece of loot on the ground. The reason why I left that piece of loot on the ground is because there was poison there, and I'll just actually pick it up on my way back. So instead of like waiting around for the poison to go away, you just leave it on the ground until you come back. If you know you're gonna come back. You're not really gonna backtrack a bunch, but there's some spots where you will come back. Okay, so we killed all the villagers now. Now we're just gonna go where that first white wall was, and that's gonna be where the boss is at. There you go. That's the whole dungeon. Okay, the second dungeon that's really good is Iron Hold. You're going to use this waypoint here, and it's right next to the waypoint. You're just going to go up and you're going here. This dungeon is a little bit different if you want to run this efficiently. The first objective is just to kill a marked elite. Once you get the key in the second area, there's going to be like these giant elite pack groups. There are going to be like 12 plus elites in one group. Sometimes there's 1, sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 3. You just want to rush this very first area, get the key, and then run to the elites. So here's the elite. You get your key, and then they're just like ghosts over here, not good density. So you just skip this entire first part, and you just want to open up this locked door. You got a little kill objective. We got to kill the corruption. Okay, and this is where the elites are going to be. You're just looking for the giant packs of elites, and then you're just going to kill these. Okay, here's the first pack of giant elites. Notice there's literally a huge pack of elites. You're just going to see a giant loot explosion of yellow items, and that's what you want, right? You just pick up all this for gold. Then you just go around this corridor and you look to see if there's another giant elite pack. Because sometimes there's only one, sometimes there's multiple big packs. So we got a double big pack area. You have to be a little careful here when you're engaging with these packs, because these things are kind of deadly. I noticed we just got like a double legendary drop, and our bag's gonna be pretty full from doing this. So at this point, you don't even kill a boss. You just leave the dungeon, then you'll reset it. You can reset dungeon just by leaving the game, pressing escape, and going back in, or you just go to another dungeon. They respawn in like 1 or 2 minutes, the mobs. Okay, the next normal mode dungeon that you could farm is Uldir's Cave, located here on the map at the bottom left portion. You just take the Iron Wolves and Encampment waypoint, you just drive over here and go in. This is just a normal mode dungeon, so you just reset it over and over again. You don't need a key. It's kind of just like a drag strip. You gotta destroy through barricades. The only downside of it does have like little bee mobs in here. They're not too deadly though. Okay, basically the first portion of the dungeon, you just kill the mob doing the barricades. Second portion, a little kill objective. Gotta do some levers. And this is a slay all enemy objective here. Okay, there's actually a really nice trick for this slay all enemy objective. You don't have to actually kill all the mobs during this. You can just kill like the large clumps, and then at the end, all the mobs will teleport onto you. So I'll just like leave some of the mobs behind me, right? Notice I'm not killing them. Right, and you're like, oh man, look at this guy. He's gonna have to come back and kill all those. Same thing here, right? I'm just gonna kill some of them. I'm not gonna get all the stragglers. We left that big pack over there at the start. Nice little ancestral chest. Notice I'm gonna leave that bee and stuff there. But I'm not gonna go kill that bee. I'm just killing the big clumps of elites. But anyways, all the mobs that I missed in the dungeon teleport me. Notice they all teleported me there. So you don't have to actually go and kill all the stragglers. This works like 95% of the time. It doesn't work all the time, but it makes the slay all kill objective a lot more efficient, knowing that you don't have to actually kill all the mobs. Usually I only try to leave like 15 to 20 of them up when I'm skipping, but yeah, it makes that dungeon completion a lot more efficient. There's also this little trick that you could do. If you have any nightmare key at all, you can activate your nightmare key. You just go to your nightmare dungeon, you enter it. Other than that, you kill one thing or whatever. You don't really have to do anything in it. And then you can teleport out and you can go run your normal mode dungeons. When you teleport out of your normal dungeon after completion and you enter back into the same portal, it'll automatically reset your dungeon, so you don't have to actually log out. That ends up saving a bunch of time. And I'll just show you guys how it works right now. So we're just in our nightmare dungeon. We're gonna teleport out real quick, and we can just go to any of the good dungeons that are close to town, like Old Ears Cave or Haunted Refuge or Blind Burrows or Mercy's Reach or Iron Hold. I'm just gonna go to Iron Hold just because it's the closest, and it should automatically reset once we're done, so you don't have to log in and out of the game. Okay, so anyways, since we opened up our nightmare dungeon, we set up and then we went and cleared our normal dungeon. Whenever you're done with your activity in your normal dungeon, all you do is teleport back to town. And since the nightmare dungeon is open, when you go back through the portal back into the normal dungeon that you're farming, right? So you don't want to be running that nightmare dungeon that you open the key in. You'll be automatically reset to the start, so you don't have to leave the game and re-enter the game over and over again. So if you're a normal mode dungeon farmer, you want to be doing this. And your nightmare dungeon, the key will persist until you log out of the game. So don't log out to the game when you're doing this. But it's just a quick, easy reset method. But honestly, Blizzard should have kept the reset dungeon button in the game instead of people going through all these loopholes to reset. Another nice thing is, yeah, you get to keep up your experience potion. You lose your experience potion whenever you leave the game and re-enter the game. Okay, so here's the next normal dungeon that you could farm. It's called Haunted Refuge. Just use the Tree of Whispered waypoint to get here. Here's a couple different waypoints around it. I'll just show you the inside of the dungeon real quick. Okay, so you just got this, the objective in here. You got to do activation stone pedestals. And you just got to slay all objectives. So you just use the same trick here for the end, where you don't have to kill all the mobs. Just kill the elites. You want to try to kill as many mobs as you can, but if you have like a straggler like that one ghost there, I'm just going to leave that guy up, right? Nice elite density in here. Watch out for the poison explosions. A big old elite pack in here. All the mobs should teleport onto us here, like all the stragglers that we got. We're just gonna kill the rest of them. There we go. I'm gonna kill a boss. Easy. Yeah, so this dungeon's really, really good for experience and loot farm. As you can see, that huge cluster of elites, and this is the Haunted Refuge. Actually need to go back and sell. And then you basically just teleport back to town, and then once you teleport back to the dungeon, if you use the little nightmare dungeon key trick, it will be reset and you'll be at the start again. The last normal mode dungeon that I recommend, there's a bunch of other good ones, but these are the ones that if I do farm normal modes, this is what I do, is Mercy's Reach. This is in Fractured Peaks. So let's talk about Nightmare Dungeon. This is probably my favorite thing to run in game. However, Nightmare Dungeons are kind of problematic right now because a lot of them lack density, the objectives aren't good, the layouts aren't good, so a lot of the current Nightmare Dungeons in the pool that we have definitely need a revamp. However, there are some good ones. So let's just talk a little bit about Nightmare Dungeons, how to run them efficiently, like certain things you want to watch out for, and then my personal favorites. I've actually been working on like a tier list, just like keeping track of a bunch of like Nightmare Dungeon stuff, like distance from waypoint, like clear speed, all the different objectives and stuff like that. And I'm going to be displaying all this data in a better format eventually, but just for the sake of this video, I'm just going to talk about what Nightmare Dungeons I currently like to run and certain things that you need to look out for. First off, how do you run Nightmare Dungeons efficiently? So the first thing is you want to make sure you're not getting an experience penalty. And how do you do that? You basically always want to be killing mobs within the Nightmare Dungeon that are 3 levels over your current character level. So if you look at your Nightmare Dungeon key, you got a level 44 Nightmare Dungeon key. If you add 54 to that, that means the mobs within that dungeon will be level 98. So if you're level 95, you could be doing those level 44 keys and so on and so forth. You always basically want to be killing mobs 3 levels over your level, because that gives you the plus 25% experience bonus. That's one of the very, very important things. Always plus 3 over. If the mobs are too hard, you can bump it down. But if you're killing mobs on your level, you won't get an experience bonus. And then if you're killing mobs under your level, you'll get an experience penalty. So basically, you always want to be killing mobs 3 levels over your current character level to be gaining the most experience. If you're killing mobs 10 levels over your character level, that's fine, but you just always want to be plus 3 over. And if it's like taking a lot longer to clear the dungeon from efficiency perspective, leveling up your glyphs and everything else like that, you just want to be plus 3 over. Also, a thing to be watching out for in Nightmare Dungeon. Nightmare Dungeon have a bunch of different affixes. There's a few affixes that I actively avoid. The Lightning Storm, this is that little thing that follows you around. You have to stand in the bubble, and then it does a little countdown. It'll zap you and it'll like stagger your character temporarily. For hardcore mode, you have to watch out for this, because sometimes if you disconnect, it kill you. It just slows you down. You don't actually have to get into the bubble and lower tier Nightmare Dungeon. You can just have up mitigation and it won't one-shot you, and you just like pop a potion to overheal it, but it just slows you down, so I usually avoid Lightning Storm. You have to watch out for Poison Enchanted. It just does some damage. And then Disable Potion, extremely bad, but if you're clearing quick Nightmare Dungeons, most of the time you won't really have to use it in a potion, but if you're putting it up higher tiers, definitely watch out for this, especially on hardcore. Watch out for the Disable Potion. Suppressors, this is like the giant bubbles on the elites. It forces you into melee. Sometimes they overlap. I avoid suppressor. Resource burn affix, absolutely terrible. If there's any type of range mobs or things shooting you, you're just like struggling to resources, so I avoid resource burn. Cold enchanted affix, you also have to watch out for. If you don't have like perma unstoppable, if you're not like a druid or if you're not a barbarian, these things will just freeze CC chain you non-stop. That's probably the number one way you die in Diablo 4, is just getting constantly CC'd. So watch out for cold enchanted if you don't have high uptime or multiple forms of unstoppable. Also, another thing that I avoid is anything that reduces my personal damage output, and you have to just look at your character and determine what this is. I play a druid that's crit based, so I won't run like stuff that has crit damage reduction, that reduces like my physical damage, that reduces my damage at closer range. And you can be really, really picky with what Nightmare Dungeons you run, because you get the ability at the cultists to break down sigils and also recraft them within a certain tier. You can't pick the dungeon that you want to run specifically. You can pick like a tier of dungeon that you want to run. So you can just break down keys you don't want, and you can recraft them, and you'll pretty much never run out. I'm actually capped on the sigil dust for crafting, and it constantly drops on the ground. So those are the things that you want to watch out for. Then I also have a little tier list of Nightmare Dungeons that I like to run. These keys I basically always run no matter what. So I'm always running Blind Burrows if I get those, Champion's Demise, Gulron Canals, Wraithwind Wild. I like running Maulwood, Alder's Wood, Renegade's Retreat, Shivta Runes, the Crusader's Cathedral, and then also Feral's Den, Whispering Pines, and Sunken Ruins. If I get these dungeons, any of these other dungeons, or if I get like Ancient's Lament or Conclave or Black Asylum, I literally just insta break these ones down. These are okay to run, but preferably I will run any of these dungeons in my good tab right away over any of these other dungeons in the game. Also, another little trick that you could do, if there's some like really good dungeon that are far from the waypoint, like Whispering Pines and Sunken Temples, what you do with these keys, you actually just get a bunch of them. You'll get like 5 of them, and then you'll run your Nightmare Dungeon, right? You'll do your completion, you'll upgrade your glyph. Once you get done with that, you teleport back to town, you use use the next Whispering Pine key, and then you go back to the teleport that you just took and it instantly puts you at the start of that nightmare dungeon. So you can basically run these nightmare dungeons that have good layouts, good mob types that are quick, and you don't have to run that long distance from the waypoint to the dungeon entrance. That's what I do with any dungeon that's far from the waypoint. I'll just save the keys and I'll just run them in groups of 5 so I don't have to make that long hike to those dungeons themselves. And that's it. Anyways, hopefully they do some buffs and changes to nightmare dungeons, but there is some good nightmare dungeons, and they are important to do because of their effects on glyphs, right? Your plus 15 glyph increases the radius, and then plus 21 on your glyphs is a huge power spike for your individual character. And I'll also include this little paste bin for this list in the video down below if you guys want to peek at it, and eventually I'll just move all the data into Excel sheet at some point. So another thing that I wanted to call out was nightmare dungeon rewards, and why you don't really want to be running a nightmare dungeon that's too high above your current character level. Well, you can if you just want to test like your capabilities, right? And you just want to push keys, but from efficiency perspective, just leveling up your glyphs and getting more loot, the reason why you don't want to be running a nightmare dungeon at that much higher is because of the rewards. This is the reward for nightmare dungeon tier 43 that you can clear in 2 minutes. 112k experience, 5,500 gold. You get a nightmare sigil, 1 legendary item, you get 1 rare and 1 magic item, right? And then this is a nightmare dungeon tier 100 clear. It took 39 minutes to clear this nightmare tier 100 dungeon. The reward was 1 legendary item, 3 rares, 169k experience, 8,940 gold, and 1 nightmare sigil, and a little bit more glyph XP. So just from an efficiency perspective, it's a lot better to be doing nightmare dungeons on a lower tier quickly than testing your capabilities on a higher tier nightmare dungeon. So if you're just farming, you want to be doing the dungeons quick, efficient, and then when you want to push and really test your character, you could do that just for EPing bragging rights, or if they ever put like a leaderboard into the game. The rewards in higher tier nightmare dungeons don't scale good at all. This is like a little trick that you can use to make your nightmare dungeon experience better. So I just save up multiple keys for the same dungeon, or like any like nightmare dungeon that's far from the waypoint. So if you get like sunken ruins or something, or any dungeon that's far away from the waypoint, you could do this for. So let me just level up my glyph real quick. Got a little glyph experience. So basically you just teleport back to town after completing your nightmare dungeon. And this is a blind Burrows. This is my favorite dungeon in the game. I love running this thing. The run back's, the run back's kind of far, right? If I want to run back to the dungeon, it's all the way over here. But if you have another nightmare dungeon key, what you do is all you do is you just click it. When you take your portal back to that nightmare dungeon, it's going to automatically be reset, so it removes that travel distance. This is kind of hard to do sometimes because you have limited stash space, but any dungeons that are far from like waypoints, I just save up a bunch of them in my stash and I just run them all at once. And that helps you quite a bit, and it removes the tedium from constantly running the distance from the waypoint to your dungeon over and over and over again. You guys really do want to level up your glyphs though to max level. You'll see that on my character that I do have my glyphs all to level 21, so I do run a lot of nightmare dungeons, and this is a huge, source of power for your character. So you do want to run nightmare dungeons. You just want to make sure, just run ones that are enjoyable for yourself, and if from efficiency perspective, you could use my list to help you out and guide you there if you want. But anyways, thank you very much for watching this video, and hopefully you find something enjoyable in Diablo 4 to farm. Bye. Okay, is that good? Is that a good YouTube video or no?